Alex Gupta with UATV. Today I'm speaking with Paul Pelosi Jr. He is a San Francisco-based investor and corporate finance expert, and also happens to be the son of Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader of the United States House of Representatives. Hello, Mr. Pelosi. Welcome to UATV.
Thank you, Alex. A pleasure to be here.
What brings you to Kiev?
Kiev's a wonderful time of year. I'm here with the Corporate Governance Initiative, and today we're here to talk about soccer. We recently got an endorsement from the World Sports Alliance, and we've spoken with the Ukraine government about collaboration for soccer for young people. You know, Ukraine's got a great history in soccer, and we hope to share in that tradition going forward.
So you have a corporate governance business, and you're here in Ukraine speaking with representatives from the government, investment bankers, discussing certain things related to soccer. Exactly.
The Corporate Governance Initiative, what we do is we work with people to kind of bring people together, a spirit of cooperation. Sometimes religion and politics can get tricky, but sports is an area where people seem to have a good, competitive, healthy relationship. And so it's a pleasure to be here and to meet with the people of Ukraine and to meet the young kids that are very enthusiastic about their athletic futures.
What are your thoughts? This is your first visit to Ukraine, I imagine?
Yes, this is my first visit here with the Corporate Governance Initiative.
What is your thoughts? What are your impressions of Ukraine?
Well, Kiev is a wonderful town. It's deep in history. They tell me it's 500 years older than Moscow, and there's a great pride with the people, very smart people, and you get a sense of optimism in the street after 2 years of conflict that you read about in the papers, and after you read about all this currency issues. It seems you have a sense of calm and a sense of optimism that was quite refreshing, that you may not have gotten unless you were here in the streets.
What is obviously, you're involved in corporate governance. You know a lot about finance. What is your take on the economy, on the finance sector, on the currency?
Well, right now, Ukraine's going through a natural, healthy process where there's a lot of debt that's being purchased and adjusted, and for the first time, you start to see young entrepreneurs starting to really build organizations. A couple of years ago, there was an exodus, but right now, there's a sense that the people in Ukraine are staying in Ukraine to prepare for a future. And so it really feels like, you know, from San Francisco, we have a lot of Silicon Valley, a lot of tech, and that's what it feels like here. A lot of young people, very educated in the area IT, aerospace, agriculture, and they're very excited about their opportunities here. And so I see a great similarity between California and Kiev, and I see that kind of sprouting up around the world, and it's very exciting to see.
No, that's a good question, because you're based in San Francisco. You're plugged into the tech scene. Do you know a lot of venture capitalists, people in the tech industry who do have presence here, who do recruit people from Kiev, who have outsourcing operations here in Ukraine?
At this point, the real outsourcing with the Ukraine really takes a look at Western Europe. They've done a lot of work with countries in Europe and with Great Britain, and so the sense is that they would like to be more closely related to the United States, but this time it really looks like Ukraine really feels like Western Europe. And so you're in an interesting situation because you read about Russia and you read about Eastern Europe, Eastern Ukraine, which was like aerospace, manufacturing. And those types of contracts are government contracts. And they're big contracts. So if you're in that business, you get the contract, you're good. There's a change in government, it shifts. That's the Eastern mentality. The Western mentality is the younger people, the entrepreneurs who are looking to get outsourcing contracts, look for shorter-term returns, look for expanded customers, move away from the government reliance, more towards the private sector. And so that's kind of the split between the East and the West. And it's derived by the language variances, it's derived by age variances, and it's evolving before our eyes.
And you see a big potential future for that?
I think that everybody's looking very carefully at the 2019 election here in Kiev. And, you know, in San Francisco, I was president of the Commission on the Environment. and during the 2007-8, and during that time period, it was the first time in human history that more people moved and lived in cities than in rural areas. And it's very clearly here. When you're in Kiev, you're in a city, and you see people coming in and incorporating, and the city's incorporating larger numbers of people. And the people from the rural areas really go to the city to learn and grow. And that's what you're seeing here. And so you have an election coming up where you have Kiev and you have the people in one situation where there's a lot of votes there, and then you have other votes in the rural area which may have a different opinion. And so the 2019 election will be very determinative towards the future of Ukraine as the trend continues. As more people move to the cities, Odessa or Kiev, and those numbers take over, you will see a government based on the Western views and less on the Eastern views. And so when you look at these conflicts and you see what Russia is doing, if Russia holds on to Crimea, if they hold on to Eastern Ukraine, and those people are not participating in the vote, you're going to see Kiev and the city voting, which is going to be more on a Western view, and you're going to see the election go one way. Conversely, if Crimea comes back to the Ukraine, if those territories come back in and those rural votes come in, then you're back to 5 years ago where you had this big mix between the East and the West, a split government. And so the people of the Ukraine are looking for some certainty, and they want to be as powerful Ukraine. They're starting to develop a real nationalism, a real identity separate from the Russian situation. And 2019 will be very dispositive in terms of the direction of the country and could provide a great deal of security and safety for both investors and the people, both in the cities and around the area.
So the future, for the most part, from an economic standpoint, it does look very good, especially with the upcoming election. It's promising, is what you're saying.
Promising would be a stretch. There won't be any IPOs of countries in Kiev for many, many years. The capital markets will not be available. There'll be very limited debt offerings. But the seeds, this is an agriculture culture. The seeds of the future are being planted now. And so the identity, the character of the country is evolving before our eyes. And that's the exciting part. So when I come and I see, that's why we start working with the kids, and we work on, the main things we look at is, around the world right now, you've got 63 million refugees. They're looking, you have income inequalities, you've got nuclear proliferation, and as all these issues dominate the globe, you want to see places where they can step aside from the conflict, think about peace, think about the future, and those seeds are being planted here. Yes, there's conflict around, but the miracle is, rather than look at the conflict, shift towards the opportunity, make an adjustment, pivot towards the future. And so it's not about investing, about making money. This is about basic fundamental human rights. This is about people and people in communities building their future. And it's very exciting to see.
Obviously you're plugged in also in Washington. You speak to policymakers. You're involved in that scene. What is the synopsis in D.C. on Capitol Hill with regard to Ukraine? We have different factions, John McCain, his faction, other people, isolationists. What's the synopsis?
Well, I think that nobody knows the future. But when you take a look at Ukraine, without putting words in people's mouths, the one thing is that everybody is always very optimistic about the future. And so what optimistic about the future for Ukraine means that they maintain their sovereignty and their self-determination. And so when you talk to the people in the streets of Kiev, they say, look, we don't want Russia coming through to us, coming to Poland, and taking into the rest of Europe. So Russia's done what they're going to do. They've taken some territories. We have to fight them at this point so that they don't go through to Poland and to the rest. So it's not so much about getting Crimea back or getting Eastern European back. It's more about they feel the people of Kiev feel very thankful for the United States. Whether the U.S. is doing it or not, who knows? But the people of Kiev, the Ukrainians, feel the support of the United States, and the sanctions are keeping Russia contained so that they don't come across the Ukraine, come across Poland, and create a bigger footprint. And so without any facts or figures, what I can tell you is the sentiment and the people of Ukraine feel very tied to the United States. They feel that Europe is helpful, but Europe's somewhat dependent upon Russia for natural gas and other things. But Ukraine today doesn't take natural gas from Russia. They've become independent, and that's the spirit. That's what you're feeling in the streets, whether it be from the U.S., whether it be faith in themselves. They've made steps towards being independent, toward creating their identity, being in the city, and starting fresh. And they feel that the U.S. has their back, which is, let's freeze the map the way it is and move forward from here.
How important is having U.S. support for Ukraine and vice versa?
Well, I think that anytime you have a spirit of peace and cooperation and kindness, that spreads. We always are refreshed by seeing acts of kindness and peace as opposed to the alternative.
What have been your biggest surprises as you've been here in Ukraine? What have you noticed? What do you have you been happy about? What do you think maybe needs some work?
Well, I think that the people are looking for capital and they're looking for opportunity, and so the more U.S. businesses have opportunity, or any global businesses have outsourced opportunities, as there's different real estate opportunities, as people want to take advantage of the agriculture by being customers of the Ukraine. So by being customers, the Ukraine economy and the people would be very appreciative.
What do you think needs some more improvement? Any certain things?
Well, when you come to a city like Kiev, you're struck by the history. You're struck by the infrastructure. You're by the spirit of the people. And whatever else is going on around the world, these are very happy people. And so that makes it for a very refreshing experience. Of course, we're here in the middle of Easter week, and perhaps that has a positive influence on people. And maybe people are being nicer than they already are. But right now, they're feeling pretty appreciative, pretty grateful.
Do you plan to come back to Kiev soon? Are we going to have you again on the show? We hope so.
Yes, no, I think that as we develop the soccer and as we continue to develop relationships, the Corporate Governance Initiative works with companies, and in order to attract the customers, people have to establish credibility. And for the corporate governance, what we focus on is having management report to a board of directors, have accounting standards which are generally accepted so people can rely on your numbers, and including all stakeholders in decisions, which is true capitalism. So with limited government, with capitalism principles, and including all stakeholders, we really believe that companies can really become international and recognized. And in Ukraine right now, that means agriculture. Mining will come back with commodities. Eventually, the commodities will come back, and that'll be an important part. And then the IT and the young businesses that will grow are fascinating opportunities. And that's really what the people are focused on. And they choose that perspective of focusing on themselves, their community, and their loved ones, and somehow block out and remember why they're here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pelosi, for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure being here.
I'm Alex Gupta with UATV. I was speaking with Paul Pelosi Jr. He's a San Francisco-based investor and corporate governance expert. He's also the son of Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader of the United States House of Representatives.